Okay, so picture this. Growing up in Brooklyn, it was always me, Nick, and my younger brother, Tony. Tony was untouchable. Mom practically worshipped him. Honestly, jealousy. That wasn't even in the picture. He was the golden boy, plain and simple. Didn't matter what he did. Tony was king. Me, I was just background noise. Quiet kid, buried in books, wore glasses way before they were cool. You get the stereotype. Tony, all swagger and noise, a carbon copy of my old man. Mom cooked gourmet meals for Tony. His laundry magically disappeared and reappeared folded. And get this, she actually had me tutor him in math, like I was his personal tutor on demand. I just shrugged it off, figured that's just how families tilted sometimes. But then the real fun started. The bullying. Tony was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Non-stop teasing about my height, those dorky glasses. He even started raiding my room, digging through my private journals. Yeah, journals, I was that kid. And then running to Mom with melodramatic readings of my angsty teenage poetry. I'd finally snap, yell at him for invading my space, complain to our parents, and they'd just laugh it off. Boys being boys, they'd say, like it was some kind of cute sitcom routine. Real helpful parenting there. It escalated. Suddenly, there were rocks in my cereal. Almost chipped a tooth, can you believe it? And one time, he nearly snapped my glasses in half during a fake wrestling match that was decidedly one-sided. Mom? Still chanting her mantra. Brothers bonding. Seriously delusional. School was already a minefield. A couple of local tough guys made my life miserable. Tony knew this, of course. And instead of, having my back like a brother should, he'd egg them on. Called me ugly loser, 4 eyes, even monkey face right in front of them, practically giving them permission to escalate. One time, during some stupid fight over the TV remote, yeah, that's how petty it was, Tony snarled, "Why don't you just do everyone a favor and jump off the roof?" That one actually stung. I was already wrestling with some heavy stuff inside, and to hear that from my own flesh and blood. Dad was always grinding away at work. Mom was living in her Tony bubble, oblivious or maybe just willfully ignorant. She even had the nerve to scold me for provoking Tony, like I was the instigator of my own abuse. High school was a whole new level of crazy. Picture this. Tony actually tried to set my hair on fire with a lighter in broad daylight, and Mom, bless her heart, still tried to spin it as some innocent misunderstanding. "He was just playing," she insisted, her voice strained with denial. Playing with fire? Literally? Who does that? Thank God finally Dad intervened. He actually saw the flames, metaphorical and literal, and laid down the law. Threatened to call the cops on Tony if he ever pulled anything like that again. First time Tony ever faced real consequences. He was genuinely shocked, like the world had suddenly shifted on its axis. Dad made it crystal clear. Enough was enough. Tony was going to start treating me with basic human decency. Later that night, Dad came to my room. I'd never expected him to actually listen, to actually see what was happening. He admitted he'd been holding out hope that Tony would just grow out of it. But he was finally facing the truth. Tony wasn't just being a typical kid. He was becoming a full-blown bully. Hearing that from Dad, who always acted like Tony could walk on water, it was like a dam broke. I just unloaded everything. Years of pent-up anger, hurt, Humiliation. All the stuff Tony had put me through, even the school bullies he'd sicked on me. Dad was stunned silent. The next day, Dad marched into the principal's office, had a serious conversation about the school bullies. That evening, he walked into the house with a gym bag slung over his shoulder and a determined look on his face. "You're starting MMA," he declared, tossing the bag onto my bed. "Learn to man up," he said. "Learn to stand your ground." Me, the poster child for indoor kids, suddenly becoming a cage fighter. Sounded insane. But I was desperate. I threw myself into it, balancing AP classes with grueling workouts, the smell of sweat and leather replacing the scent of old books in my room. MMA. It transformed me. Not just my body, but something inside shifted too. Confidence, maybe. Or just plain anger channeled into something productive. Then came the allowance showdown. Chore money, we both got it. I was actually saving up for a decent graphics card for my computer. My prized possession. My escape. Tony naturally decided he needed it more. Sneaked into my room, swiped the cash. I caught him red-handed, about to hop on his bike and peel off with his posse, my hard-earned money bulging in his pocket. I blocked his bike, demanded it back. Tony just sneered, that classic Tony smirk that could curdle milk. "What are you gonna do? Cry to daddy, loser?" Something just snapped. Years of being the punching bag, the doormat, the invisible brother. I punched him, square in the face. He actually staggered backward, stunned, fell off his bike like a sack of potatoes. I snatched my money, left him sprawled on the sidewalk, whimpering. Mom came screeching out of the house like a banshee, saw Tony on the ground, me standing over him. She went ballistic, told Dad I was a menace, out of control, needed to be disciplined. Dad, to his credit, actually listened to both sides this time. He heard about the stolen money, Tony's taunts. He looked at Tony, really looked at him and said, "You're lucky Nick only punched you for stealing. Anyone else would have called the cops." Tony threw a full-on tantrum, stomped his feet, screamed about unfairness, probably hoping Mom would jump in and rescue him. But Dad stood firm. When Tony realized he wasn't going to be coddled, that he was actually in the wrong, he lost it. Screamed he hated me, hated everyone, and stormed back into the house, slamming his bedroom door so hard the windows rattled. After that, things changed. Tony started keeping his distance. He finally understood, maybe, that he couldn't push me around anymore, that even Mom and Dad weren't automatically in his corner. It was a weird kind of peace, like a truce declared but with no actual treaty signed. We were like ships passing in the night in our own house. He couldn't physically bully me anymore, not without risking a black eye, but the verbal jabs kept coming whenever our parents weren't around. Nerd, loser, freak, his greatest hits, muttered under his breath as he walked past me like I was invisible. If he actually needed to communicate something, he'd relay it through Mom, like I was some kind of untouchable leper. I asked Mom why Tony couldn't just talk to me directly. She'd just sigh, tell me to be more understanding, like I was the one being unreasonable. Puberty? Maybe. Genuine hatred? Felt more like that. Dealing with his constant negativity was like living in a toxic cloud. I started counting down the days until I could escape. Beg Mom to get us into family counseling, some kind of sit-down to actually address the years of whatever this was. Nope. Don't want to get involved, she'd say, waving her hand dismissively. Asked her point blank why Tony treated me like this. Blank stare. Brush off. Eventually, college applications, scholarship to Columbia, my ticket out. Dad actually threw a graduation party for me, a real one, with balloons and everything. Even Mom managed to smile, a fleeting moment of what looked almost like pride. Tony sat in the corner, headphones on, radiating teenage angst and resentment, barely acknowledging my existence, let alone my achievements. The day I packed my bags for Morningside Heights was a cocktail of emotions, pure, unadulterated excitement for the future, mixed with a huge wave of relief to finally escape the suffocating atmosphere of that house. The first few months at Columbia were like breathing fresh air for the first time in years. New friends, classes that actually challenged me, a whole city to explore. I started building a life that was entirely, gloriously mine. The constant low-level hum of anxiety, the fear of Tony's next verbal assault, just faded away. Peace. Actual, genuine peace. Sophomore year, I met Olivia at a party in the village. Through a mutual friend, the kind of crowded, noisy frat party I usually avoided. But something about Olivia. Instant connection. She was studying art history. Brilliant, funny, with this infectious laugh that could light up a room. We were from different worlds, different boroughs even. She was Upper East Side, private schools, the whole package. Me, Queens kid, public education, struggling to fit in sometimes. But it didn't matter. We just clicked. Her family was traditional, let's just say. Strict Catholic upbringing, kids before marriage. Definitely not on the approved list. But then, senior year, surprise. Pregnant. Suddenly, wedding bells were ringing, and fast. Small ceremony in a church downtown, both sets of parents trying to look happy, maybe a little strained around the edges, but mostly just relieved we were doing the right thing. At that moment, standing at the altar, Olivia radiant in white, I genuinely believed I'd found my forever. Monogamy, one love, the whole fairy tale. Never even glanced at another woman. Olivia was my dream girl, the only one I ever wanted. Then, the cracks started to show. First, a whisper of suspicion, a late night at work, a vague phone call. Something just felt off. Then, the confirmation. An email carelessly left open on her laptop. An affair with a married co-worker. Years. My world tilted. Devastation doesn't even begin to cover it. But I loved her. And we had little Mikey by then. Didn't want to break up our family. Youthful mistakes, I told myself, clinging to any explanation. Bad judgment. We talked, cried, promised fresh starts. Things seemed better for a while. But the trust? Shattered. Like a dropped vase, impossible to fully piece back together. Still, I tried. For Mikey, for us. 4 years later, just when I thought we'd actually made it through the storm, the second blow landed. Another affair. This time with an ex-boyfriend during a family visit to her parents in Connecticut. Again, the gut punch of betrayal. But I forgave her. Again. Stupid, naive, maybe. I wanted to believe in us, to believe in her. 3 months ago, the earth cracked open beneath my feet. Olivia called me into the living room, her face pale, voice trembling. "There's something I need to tell you," she started, and I knew, instantly, in the pit of my stomach, that this wasn't going to be good. Long-term affair, she confessed. And then the real bomb. "Mikey, he might not be yours." Her words hit me like a physical blow, winded me, stole the air from my lungs. Shock, betrayal, disbelief. A toxic cocktail of emotions flooded through me. I couldn't even process it. Days blurred into a haze of confusion and pain. Finally, I managed to ask, voice hoarse, "Why? Why keep something like this a secret? How could you do this?" Her reaction was detached, cold, like she was narrating someone else's life, not her own. Vague answers, half-truths, leaving me with a million more questions swirling in my head. Surreal, painful, confronting the wreckage of our marriage, the gaping hole where trust used to be, the terrifying uncertainty about my own son. "Who is the father?" I finally choked out, needing to know, needing some solid ground beneath my feet. She hesitated, then whispered, the name dropping like a lead weight into the silence. "Tony." "Tony, my brother." My eyes went wide, breath hitched. "What?" I managed, voice barely audible. Olivia explained, words tumbling out now, a dam finally breaking. Friends with Tony when she stayed with us that Thanksgiving and New Year's break years ago. Tony, suddenly Mr. Charming around Olivia, polite, attentive. I'd been relieved, actually. Thought he was finally thawing, becoming a normal human being. Olivia, eager to be accepted by my family, had spent time with Mom, confided in her, noticed the weird tension between Tony and me. I'd opened up about our toxic history, the years of abuse, the deep rift that felt irreparable. Olivia, bless her well-meaning but disastrous heart, thought she could fix it. Started including Tony in our outings, movie nights, game nights, trying to help us bond. Tony and Olivia laughing, playing video games while I sat there oblivious, thinking things were actually improving. She said one night Tony opened up to her, breakup drama, feeling vulnerable, the whole sob story. Friendship blossomed. Harmless flirting, she called it when I wasn't around. Then, inevitably, things escalated. Beyond her control, she claimed. The image of my wife and my brother, together. It made my stomach churn, bile rising in my throat. "Guilt," Olivia said. That's why she'd left so abruptly after New Year's, even though I'd begged her to stay. Back at Columbia after the holidays, she was her usual cheerful self, hiding everything. 2 weeks later, pregnant. Didn't know for sure who the father was, mine or Tony's. No way to prove it back then. She chose me, she said, because I was the dependable brother, married me, started our life together based on a lie. My world shattered. Mikey, the little boy I adored, the spitting image of me, I thought, might be Tony's son. I asked Olivia, voice trembling, "Have you been seeing Tony recently?" Slow nod. "Always stayed in touch," she confessed. "Chemistry," she murmured, like that word excused everything. Sneaking off to hotels, lies about work trips, business conferences that were actually romantic getaways with my own brother. I was reeling. "Why?" I asked, voice raw with pain. "Why marry me if you wanted him?" She didn't want to be the one to break things off, she said, tears finally welling in her eyes. Saw me as a wonderful father. Decided to stay. "Made a mistake," she sobbed. "Didn't know when to stop." I was numb. Told her, flatly, "I'm leaving." Started packing my clothes, moving like a robot. She started crying, real tears now, begging for forgiveness. Expected a screaming match, a meltdown. I just kept packing, methodical, detached. "Fight for me," she pleaded. "Mistakes happen in every marriage." When she realized I wasn't going to explode, wasn't going to engage in a dramatic confrontation, she shifted tactics. "Think of Mikey," she wailed. "Broken home, for his sake." I stopped packing, turned to face her, voice cold. "Mikey might not even be mine, Olivia." That shut her up for a second. Then more tears, accusations of cruelty, of being heartless. She genuinely believed nothing could make me walk away. Maybe she was right in a way. Part of me, a huge part of me, still loved her. Loved the memory of us, the life we'd built, the sun we shared. But the betrayal, it was too deep, too corrosive. "It's not too late to fix this," she whispered, desperation clinging to her voice. Hollow words. Trust, pulverized. She slept with my brother, my own brother. Unforgivable. I finished packing, walked out the door, leaving her sobbing on the doorstep. Checked into a hotel downtown. Anything to escape the suffocating weight of that apartment, that life, that lie. Next morning, straight to my parents' place in Queens. Sat them down at the kitchen table, took a deep breath, and laid it all out. Olivia's affair, with Tony, years, secret getaways, Mikey's paternity in question. The silence in the kitchen was thick enough to choke on. Shock rippled across their faces. Mom, predictably, went into denial. "My Tony would never," she insisted, voice rising, protective mother bear instincts kicking in, even in the face of this catastrophe. Determined to cut through the denial, to force them to actually hear the truth. I asked them to stay quiet. Just listen. Pulled out my phone, called Tony. Speakerphone on. Told them to stay silent, let me catch him off guard, make him think it was a private conversation. Tony answered, voice casual, clueless. I confronted him, point blank. "The affair, Olivia, Mikey." At first, vehement denial. "What are you talking about? You're crazy." Refused to take any responsibility, any blame. Then I dropped the bomb. Olivia confessed, Tony. She told me everything. Silence on the other end of the line. Then the shift. Blame game. He started trashing Olivia, characterless, slut, the whole misogynistic playbook. Not my fault if women are attracted to me, he sneered, arrogance dripping from his voice. I'm the better-looking brother, after all. I just stared at the ceiling, trying to keep my rage from boiling over. I'm going to expose you, Tony, I said, voice flat, deadly calm. Everyone will know what you've done. He laughed, a hollow, dismissive sound. No one will believe you, Nick. I'm the golden child, remember? I actually scoffed, a bitter, humorless sound. Thanks for confirming everything, Tony. And then I just waited. Let the silence hang in the air, thick with accusation and guilt. Tony went quiet, then sputtered, stammered, tried to backtrack, tried to salvage his image, his perfect golden boy facade. Mom, finally, the shock starting to crack through her denial, demanded an explanation. Tony stumbled through a pathetic attempt to justify his actions, blaming everyone but himself, desperately trying to deflect, to shift the blame back onto Olivia. I watched Mom, her face a shifting landscape of emotions. Disbelief, then dawning horror, then finally a flicker of anger. For years, I'd endured Tony's torment, invisible in my own family. Now, the truth was out, raw and ugly, the roles reversed. Tony, finally, stood exposed, his carefully constructed image shattered, his words faltered, died in his throat. Dad, who'd been silent throughout the entire call, finally spoke. He asked me to pass him the phone. His voice, when he addressed Tony, was low, controlled, but laced with a cold fury that was more terrifying than any shouting match. "Tony," Dad began, each word measured, heavy with disappointment. "What you've done, it's not just a betrayal of your brother. It's a betrayal of this family, sleeping with your brother's wife, continuing the affair even after they were married. Your actions have consequences, Tony. Severe consequences. You've shattered the trust we had in you, irrevocably. I raised both of you to value family, loyalty, decency. What you've shown today, it defies everything I've tried to teach you." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in, crush Tony under their weight. Your disregard for Nick's feelings, your complete lack of respect for his marriage, it's unacceptable. You've not only hurt him, Tony, you've torn apart the bonds that hold our family together. Your mother and I, we have to take some responsibility for what you've become. But we will no longer tolerate this behavior. From today, you're cut off. College fund? Gone. Figure out how to pay for NYU yourself. Lifestyle? No more handouts. You think it makes you more of a man to sleep with married women, Tony? Let's see how you manage without my money propping you up. Dad hung up. Just like that. Silence descended again, heavy, absolute. I maintained a blank expression, watching the fallout ripple across my parents' faces. Inside, a strange sense of vindication. Not joy, not exactly, but something close. For years, I'd been the invisible one, the dismissed one, the one whose pain was minimized, ignored. Now, finally, Tony was facing the music. He'd underestimated the consequences, blinded by his own arrogance, his own sense of entitlement. Mom, despite Dad's pronouncements, started to protest, weakly defending Tony, still clinging to the remnants of her golden boy fantasy. Dad just cut her off with a look, a single withering glance that shut her down instantly. Afterward, Mom approached me hesitantly, like she was afraid I'd bite. She put her arms around me, a clumsy, awkward hug. It had been years, decades maybe, since we'd shared any kind of physical affection. But in that embrace, there was something different, an unspoken understanding, a flicker of genuine support. Amid the wreckage of our family implosion, she actually apologized for not believing me, for all those years of blindness, of favoritism, of dismissal. 14-year-old me, the lonely, bullied kid hiding in his bedroom with his books, could never have imagined this moment, vindicated, embraced by my mother. Following the family earthquake, Dad became my rock, helped me find a shark of a divorce lawyer. Olivia and her lawyer tried to play dirty, alimony demands, the whole 9 yards. But her affair, especially with my brother, turned the tables completely. Paternity test. Came back positive. Tony was Mikey's father. The news. It was a fresh wave of pain, deeper, more visceral than even Olivia's infidelity. Furious, raw, burning anger. The son I'd loved, raised, cherished. Not mine, but I refused to crumble. Stayed strong for myself, for whatever future I could salvage. Olivia, in a desperate, tear-soaked phone call, begged me to still see Mikey. "He shouldn't be punished for this," she sobbed. Couldn't do it. Couldn't bear to look at him. Every time I saw his face, I'd see Tony, and the rage would just flare up again. After the divorce was finalized, a strange sense of liberation moved into a bachelor pad in Manhattan. Surreal to be living alone, truly alone, for the first time in my adult life. Married so young, never had that independent chapter, but my naturally introverted, independent nature kicked in, adapted quickly, actually enjoyed it. Peace and quiet, my own space, no drama. 2 weeks ago, Dad called, said he was rewriting his will, cutting Tony out completely. Dad's nothing if not decisive. Once he makes a decision, that's it. Tony tried reaching out to our parents, showed up at their doorstep begging for forgiveness, tears streaming down his face. They didn't even open the door. Even Mom, who usually melted at Tony's tantrums, seemed finally, irrevocably done. Must be tearing her apart inside, but she held firm. Tony never texted me. No apology, no remorse. Just bitter about being cut off financially. Dad said he's leaving everything to me. House in Queens, savings, investments, life insurance, everything. Close to $2 million. The only condition, Mom gets to stay in the house as long as she lives. Ownership transfers to me, but she's taken care of. Fine by me. Want to make sure Mom's okay, even after everything. Somehow, Tony found out about the will. Desperate, unable to reach our parents, he called me yesterday, trying to make amends. Suddenly, He was Mr. Apologetic, Mr. Remorseful. Explained how he was struggling in college, how Olivia was pestering him for child support now that the paternity was out in the open. Said he was broke, looking for part-time jobs, couldn't find anything decent. Begged me to talk to the family, start fresh, said he really needed my help. I laughed in his face. "Done with you, Tony," I said, voice flat. "Should have thought about the consequences before you slept with my wife and got her pregnant." Tony started whining, said it was unfair, that Olivia was just as much to blame. Agreed. And I divorced her, didn't I? Her problem now, not mine, or his. Reminded him that Mikey, or Henry, or whatever his name is now, is his responsibility. Not mine, not my problem. Tony started raising his voice, getting loud, aggressive again. I cut him off. "You're not the golden child anymore, Tony," I said, voice dripping with ice. "You're the black sheep, the one who slept with his own brother's wife." That's when he broke. Started crying. Actually crying. Told me how everyone had turned against him. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, the whole extended family. Which was true, but no longer my concern. "We're done, Tony," I said, voice cold, final. "Don't ever call me again. I don't have a brother anymore." Hung up. Silence. Since then, I've replayed the conversation in my head. Despite everything, despite the years of hatred, of abuse, of betrayal, I'd never heard him cry like that. Not since we were kids, anyway. Won't lie. It did something. Hurt, maybe a little, to hear him so broken, so helpless. So here I am, wondering, should I talk to my parents? Maybe try to, I don't know, soften the blow a little? Or am I just being a complete idiot, falling for his act again? Update 1. Okay, so a lot of you are asking about Mikey, Henry now, I guess. Why I'm not seeing him, why I'm abandoning him. Let me be clear, I'm not comfortable raising another man's child. This isn't a stepson situation. I was lied to, tricked into believing Henry was my son. Then, bam. Turns out he's Tony's. Naturally, that revelation hurt. Deeply. Cried about it for days. Main reason I can't see Henry. Karen. Olivia. Whatever her name is now. I don't want her in my life. If I stay connected to her kid, she'll find a way to wiggle back in. And I need my space. My peace. Call me cruel. Call me selfish. Fine. But I can't see him. Not now. Maybe not ever. Update 2. Okay, most of you nailed it. Mom. It was Mom who told Tony about the will. Of course it was. That's why he called me. Desperate, last-ditch effort to fix things. Confronted her in front of Dad. She broke down, sobbed about how I'd punished Tony enough, how he'd learned his lesson. Dad shut her down hard, told her if she actually believed what Tony did was forgivable, then he couldn't stay married to her. He could never forgive that kind of betrayal. That threat silenced her. Dad made it crystal clear. If she ever contacted Tony again without our knowledge, she could pack her bags. Dad's stubborn as a mule. Hopefully, Mom finally gets it. Hopefully, she learns. Update 3. 5 months later, things are calmer. Relationship with my parents is actually good. Dad and I golf every weekend now, weirdly bonding over birdies and bogeys. He treats me more like a friend than a son these days. Mom, she misses Tony. I know she does, but she stayed away. Last I heard about Tony, from my cousin, surprisingly. Apparently, Tony's been hitting up everyone in the family for cash. Dropped out of NYU because he couldn't afford tuition anymore. He and Olivia are living together now, in some tiny apartment in Astoria, working as a mechanic of all things, raising Henry, or Mikey, or whatever they're calling him. Good for them, I guess. Don't talk about Tony with my parents. They don't bring him up either. Me? Doing okay. Got a promotion at work a couple months back. Salary bump. Finally feeling like I'm getting my life back on track. Haven't been dating. Still processing. Healing. Therapy helps, surprisingly. We'll see where things go. Thanks for listening, I guess, to all of it.